Hello, this is lecture 32 of the course on principle of behavioral economics, and this is the second lecture on mental accounting. In this we are going to discuss a concept called hedonic editing hypothesis. Now this is basically a very important contribution of mental accounting, but before we arrive at hedonic editing hypothesis, we basically need to understand why do we need to talk about this kind of or development of a hypothesis like this. So, in the last module we concluded by discussing the framing of gains and losses, which basically borrows from the concept of the prospect theory. So, I will just briefly summarize or recapitulate the concepts that were mentioned there. So, we know that KT's value function incorporates first the function V is defined over perceived gains and losses relative to some natural reference point. Second, the value function is assumed to be concave for gains and convex for losses. Here we can also write it as V double prime x less than 0 for x greater than 0 and V double prime x greater than 0 for x less than 0. These are the mathematical implications. Third, the loss function is steeper than the gain function. So, we have Vx less than minus V minus x for x greater than 0. Now, the role of the value function in mental accounting is to describe how events are perceived and coded in making decisions. Kahneman and Tversky proposed three ways of framing outcomes in terms of a minimal account, a topical account or a comprehensive account. The following example illustrates the implications of the three accounts mentioned in the previous slide. Imagine that you are about to purchase a jacket for $125 or $15 and a calculator for $15 and $125. Basically, the statement was presented in two versions. One is given in the parenthesis and the other one is in bracket. So, I would be reading it say twice. First of all, statement 1, imagine that you are about to purchase a jacket for $125 and a calculator for $15. The calculator salesman informs you that the calculator you wish to buy is on sale for $10 at the other branch of the store located 20 minutes drive away. Would you make the trip to the other store? Alternatively, the second statement is that imagine that you are about to purchase a jacket for $15 and a calculator for $125. The calculator salesman again informs you that the calculator you wish to buy is on sale for $120 at the other branch of the store located 20 minutes drive away. Would you make the trip to the other store? So, what is it tries to find out is that in the beginning it was available at $15 and you can get a discounted price of $10 which is $5 less by driving 20 minutes. Similarly, in the second situation the calculator was available for a price of $125 and again you can save $5 by driving 20 minutes to get the calculator at a lower price of $120. Now, in both versions of this problem, most people said that they will travel to save the $5 when the item costs $15, but not when it costs $125. Now, if people were using a minimal account frame, they would be just asking themselves whether they are willing to drive 20 minutes to save $5 and would give the same answer in either version. So, in a minimal account frame, basically the focus remains on the necessary concept. So, here the necessary concepts are that how much I am saving $5, how much I have to drive 20 minutes. So, if I compare, then both situations are same and I should be willing to drive for 20 minutes to $5 to save $5 in both situations, which is essentially is the prescription of the neoclassicals. Comparing the two options using the minimal account entails examining only the differences between the two options, disregarding all their common features. So, it is not as a ratio or proportion like I am saving $5 to $15 or I am saving $5 to $125. These are actually not taken into consideration. $5 20 minutes drive, that is all probably would concern us. A topical account relates the consequences of possible choices to a reference level that is determined by the context within which the decision arises. So, here we are bringing in the context. The context is like whether I am saving $5 against $15 or I am saving $5 against $125, and accordingly I will be taking a decision. So, mental accounting is topical. A comprehensive account, that is the third account, incorporates all other factors including current wealth, future earnings, possible outcomes of other probabilistic holdings and so on. Economic theory generally assumes that people make decisions using the comprehensive account. That is, when I consider saving $5, then it does not matter whether the calculator costs $15 or $125. I would be taking into consideration several other factors, that what is my current wealth situation, can I let go of $5 or what are my future earnings possibility. Does it, if I am expecting higher income in future or some windfall in future, some gain, some bonus, then I may let go of $5, otherwise I would not. So, various other things that may impact the decision are all taken into consideration in the comprehensive account before coming to a decision whether to drive for 20 minutes to save $5 or not. Interestingly, a similar analysis applies in the comprehensive account frame. Let existing wealth be W and W star be existing wealth plus the jacket and calculator minus 140, minus 140 in the sense that this is 15 plus 125. Now, W star is the existing wealth plus the jacket and calculator. Since you do not actually own them, so 140 is subtracted from it. Then the choice comes down to the utility of W star plus $5 versus the W star plus 20 minutes. So, that is another way of looking at it when you go for a comprehensive account frame. This example illustrates an important general point. The way a decision is framed will not alter choices if the decision maker is using a comprehensive wealth based analysis, because again you can see that it comes down to W plus $5 versus W star plus $5 versus W star plus 20 minutes. So, whether you would be willing to take that 20 minutes drive in order to save $5 or not, that is again is the bottom line, and that is again shows that is not contingent upon whether you are driving to save $5 against $15 or $5 against $125. However, framing does alter choices in the real world because people make decisions piecemeal influenced by the context of the choice. So, context plays a major role, and as a result of which people thought that saving $5 and $15 implies you are basically saving 30%, 33% of your total expenditure, but saving $5 out of $125 is actually a very minuscule percent, as a result of which you may let go of it. You do not consider worth driving 20 minutes to save say 1%, 2% or 5% of your expenditures, right. So, this is how the decisions are made. The decisions are contextual, which basically refers to the context of mental accounting, because mental accounting is topical. Now, we talk about how we would be coding gains and losses. The prospect theory value function is defined over single unidimensional outcomes. If you remember that there was one criticism against prospect theory is that most of the prospects that it was using were regular, and when they used mixed prospects, then they were segregated into gains and losses. So, in some way we can consider them unidimensional. How do we code joint outcomes like x, y? Now, x, y could be both positive, both negatives as well as mixed. Two possibilities are, first the outcomes could be valued jointly as Vxy. So, we integrate them and then try to see how they are valued, in which case they will be said to be integrated. Alternatively, they may be valued separately as Vx plus Vy, in which case they are said to be segregated. The issue is which one between integration and segregation produces greater utility. Now, again we will see that this is actually very much contextual. There is no uniform rule that this is we should always integrate or we should always segregate. We would be integrating or segregating depending on context, but of course, on that basis we can always come up with certain rules. We will be talking about them in the next. The issue is interesting from three different perspectives. First, if a situation is sufficiently ambiguous, how will individuals choose to code outcomes? To some extent, people try to frame outcomes in whatever way makes them happiest. Second, individuals may have preferences about how their life is organized. Would most people rather have a salary of plus a certain bonus or a salary of equivalent amount? So, basically would you like to have say a salary of 50,000 and a bonus paid maybe on a monthly basis 1,000 or on a yearly basis 12,000, or you would like to have a salary of 51,000 every month. Third, the most relevant to marketing, how would a seller want to describe a frame, the characteristics of a transaction? Which attributes should be combined and which should be separated? So, these are the questions that are important while we try to code gains and losses. The jacket and calculator problem demonstrates that mental accounting is piecemeal and topical, but there is more to learn from that example. Why are we more willing to drive across town to save money on a small purchase than a large one? So, when it is $15, I am traveling 20 minutes. I can also understand that traveling 20 minutes is going to make my entire purchase more expensive. I am trying to save $5, maybe I would be spending $5 on that 20 minutes drive. So, clearly there is some psychophysics at work here. $5 seem like a significant saving on $15 purchase, but not so on $125 purchase. The disparity in choice implies that the utility of the saving must be associated with the differences in values, that is V minus 125 minus V minus 120. These are in minus because both are payments, they are going out. So, sort of losses, so we will be talking about it later that prime payments are not generally considered to be losses. Nevertheless, since I am making the payment, so these are value minus 125 or alternatively V minus 15 minus V minus 10 rather than the value of the difference V 5. So, this is different from this. If I consider V 125 minus 120, then it is V 5 always, and V 15 minus 10, then again this is V 5. So, V 5 would always be same, but if I break it, then of course they are not the same. That is, the utility of saving $5 on the purchase of the expensive item must be V minus 125 minus V minus 120, or perhaps the ratio of these values rather than V $5. Otherwise, there would be no difference between the two versions of the problem. So, basically otherwise there will be no difference between the two versions of the problem if we consider the values like this. Now, what else we know about mental accounting arithmetic, specifically how are two or more financial outcomes within a single account combined? This is an important question because we would like to be able to construct a model of how consumers evaluate events such as purchase that typically involve combinations of outcomes, good as well as bad. So, there will be 4 experiments that were conducted by Thaler in order to develop the theory of hedonic editing or the hypothesis of hedonic editing. So, now we are going to talk about those 4 experiments. So, in these 4 experiments, there will be 4 pairs of scenarios. In each case, 2 events occur in Mr. A's life and 1 event occurs in Mr. B's life. You are asked to judge whether Mr. A or Mr. B is happier. Would most people rather be A or B? That is the question. So, if you place yourself in A or B, which one would you like to be? If you think the 2 scenarios are emotionally equivalent, say no difference. In all cases, the events are intended to be financially equivalent. So, this was the introduction that was given to all the participants of the experiments. Now, this is the first experiment. Mr. A was given tickets to lotteries involving the World Series. he won $50 in one lottery and $25 in the other. Mr. B was given a ticket to a single larger World Series lottery, he won $75. Who was happier? So, again see that the financial implications are same. In case of Mr. A, two things are happening in his life. So, he is winning it twice, once 50 and then second 25, and one thing is happening in Mr. B's life. So, he is just winning one amount, which is 75. Who is happier? Most people say that Mr. A should be happier. 64% said that Mr. A should be happier than Mr. B, and there were some percentages those who perceived it to be emotionally not different. So, from there it is concluded that multiple gains when both x and y are greater than 0, segregation is preferred since Vx plus Vy is greater than Vx plus y due to concavity of the value function. So, 75 is actually Vx plus y, 50 plus 25, and Vx plus Vy is V50 plus V25, and since most people considered A to be happier, this implies that Vx plus Vy must be greater than Vx plus y. The second experiment, Mr. A received a letter from the income tax department saying that he made a minor arithmetical mistake on his tax return and owed $100. He received a similar letter the same day from his state income tax authorities saying he owed $50. There were no other repercussions from either mistake. Mr. B received a letter from the income tax department saying that he made a minor arithmetical mistake on his tax return and owed $150. There were no other repercussions from his mistake. Who was more upset? So, since these both situations are of losses, again two things are happening to Mr. A and one thing is happening to Mr. B. Both of them are asked to pay certain amount. So, they must be upset. There are losses. So, who was more upset? 76% again said that Mr. A must be more upset compared to Mr. B, and of course, there were certain percentages for whom they were emotionally equal. Now, what does it imply? Multiple losses are there. The outcomes are minus x minus y, where x and y are greater than 0. So, here x takes a value of 100 and y takes a value of 50. Since they needed to pay them, we are assigning a negative sign in front of these numbers. Now, here if Mr. A is more upset, then it implies that V minus x plus V minus y should be greater than V minus x plus y. So, here in this case integration is preferred again due to concavity of the value function. So, here what is happening is that if you look at it, V minus x plus V minus y, we are dealing with the loss domain. So, as a result of which this is a larger value implies that basically someone having V minus x plus y, the losses integrated is less upset, right, again due to the concavity of the value function. The third experiment, Mr. A bought his first New York State lottery ticket and won $100. Also, in a freak accident, he damaged the rug in his apartment and had to pay the landlord $80. So, there are two situations or two things happening in Mr. A's life. One is a gain, another one is a loss. The gain is greater than the loss. Mr. B bought his first lottery ticket and won $20. Who was happier? So, this is again overall a gain and only one thing is happening in Mr. B's life. Now, 70% felt that Mr. B would be happier compared to Mr. A, and 5% said that there is no emotional difference. Now, here we see this is a case of mixed gain. There is gain and there is loss, but the gain is greater than loss. Let the outcomes are x and minus y, where x is greater than y. Since the loss function is steeper than the gain function, so Vx plus V minus y is less than 0, while V minus x minus y is greater than 0 for x greater than y. So, here in this case this is greater than 0 and this is less than 0. So, integration is preferred since Vx plus V minus y would be less than V x minus y. See, V x plus V minus y is less than 0, but this is greater than 0. So, of course, this has to be less than V x minus y. So, integration results in cancellation. What we are cancelling here? We are cancelling the minor loss that is occurring in Mr. A's life. And finally, the fourth experiment, Mr. A's car was damaged in parking lot. He had to spend $200 to repair the damage. The same day the car was damaged, he won $25 in the office football pool. Mr. B's car was damaged in a parking lot. He had to spend $175 to repair the damage. So, see, two things are happening in Mr. A's life, one loss and one gain. So, here now the loss is greater than gain, and Mr. B's car was damaged. So, he is having a total amount of loss only one thing is happening in his life, and you can see that the loss implications in terms of finances is the same, that is net is minus 175, here also this is minus 175. So, who was more upset? Again people say that 72% said that Mr. B would be more upset as compared to Mr. A, and there was 6% for whom there was no difference. So, here we have mixed loss, there is some gain, there is some loss, but since the loss is greater than gain, so we have mixed loss. Let the outcomes are x and minus y, where x is less than y. So, there is a net loss. The possibilities are V x plus V minus y greater than equal to or less than equal to x minus y. That is, when we segregate them into V x and V minus y, then we can have the value greater than or less than the integrated one. Now, segregation is preferred if V x is greater than V x minus y minus V minus y. More likely, the smaller the x relative to y, this is referred to as silver lining principle. So, we would be going for segregation when x is small relative to y, when the gain is relatively small compared to the loss. Integration is preferred when x and y are close resembling a case of cancellation, when x and y are close resembling a case of cancellation. So, we would be integrating the gains and losses when x and y values are pretty close to each other, and then we will be having a situation that we just discussed in the previous slide of cancellation. I am going to show them these things using diagrams. So, this is one situation where we are having x and y that are relatively close. Now, we need to remember that y is actually greater than x, or the loss is greater than the gain. So, this is y and this is x. You can see that y is greater than x, but the difference between them is not much. Now, if I subtract the amount of, so this is my x, if equivalent amount is subtracted from y, then this is my x minus y. Given the value function, I will be having here which is v x minus y, and as opposed to that, if I consider the segregated account, so this is my minus y, so accordingly this is my v minus y, and this is x. So, given the value function, this is my v x. Now, this I have to subtract this distance from here. So, I am here which is v x plus v minus y. This is I get by integration, this is I get by segregation. Now, you can see that both of them are in negative domain. So, one thing I can say is that minus v x minus y is less than minus v x minus v minus y. Alternatively, it shows that v x minus y, the value is greater than v x plus v minus y, right. So, that is why we would be preferring integration. Now, this is with respect to the situation when y is large relative to x or x is small relative to y. So, you can see that the gain has been pretty small, the loss is very large, which is basically the final case that you lose 200 and you gain basically 25. So, there is a net loss of 175. Now, what is happening here? This is the corresponding V y, this is V minus y and this is V x. Now, when I subtract this height from here, I will be somewhere here V x plus V minus y, and this is where we are integrating, which is like when they are integrated together. So, I subtracted x from y and this is the corresponding value V x minus y. So, now you can see that V x minus y is actually a larger negative number as compared to V x plus V minus y. So, as a result of which segregation is preferred. This is called segregation is preferred and this is called silver lining. Silver lining is like, as you know, that when there are clouds and the sun is behind the cloud, then there are silver lining formed at the edges of the cloud. So, this actually refers to the situation where we become hopeful by seeing those silver lining that the clouds would be gone soon, the weather would become better, the days would become sunny. So, silver lining are the situations where we become hopeful, and this is a situation where we are having huge amount of losses, nevertheless a small gain makes us somewhat better, so somewhat hopeful. So, given the shape of the value function, it is easy to derive the following principles of hedonic framing, that is the way of evaluating joint outcomes to maximize utility. We just now summarize the things that we have just discussed. So, segregate gains because the gain function is concave. So, when I am making both gains, then x and y both are gains, then x plus we need to segregate gains to have better utility. Integrate losses because the loss function is convex. So, both are losses and we need to integrate. We have argued that integrating them make us better. Integrate smaller losses with larger gains to offset loss aversion. So, this is the case of cancellation. When there is one gain and one large, but the gain is one gain and one loss, but the gain is larger. And finally, we have segregate small gains, that is the case of silver lining, from larger losses because the gain function is steepest at the origin. The utility of a small gain can exceed the utility of slightly reducing a large loss. So, these are the four very important principles of hedonic framing as hypothesized by Taylor in his discussion on mental accounting. With this, I conclude this module on hedonic editing principles or hypothesis. These are the references that have been used. Thank you.